can also help you just live a healthier life. So I'm looking forward to speaking with you this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Natoya. Dr. Alina Williams, you can join us now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Williams. I am a clinical psychologist at the Scarborough General Hospital. I was also recently diagnosed with fibroids, simultaneously diagnosed with a pregnancy as well. So I am here to share my story and my journey through pregnancy, having a very difficult experience with my fibroids. And I am here to learn from others as well about their experience in fibroids.
Thank you very much, Dr. Williams. And the lone gentleman on the panel this afternoon, and I must interject at this point before I introduce that gentleman. Fibroid Awareness Trinidad and Tobago, as mentioned before, our focus is advocacy and awareness. And fibroids, although they are a female issue, they don't impact females only, because we live in a world with males, right? Some of us are in relationship with men. We have brothers have sisters, mothers, friends. And I think it's only sensible to include men in the conversation. And so from the outset, anything that we do, we target and incorporate the male voice in the conversation because it's important. And so without any further additions, I will now invite Mr. Stephan Sandy to introduce himself.
All right, good day, everyone. My name is Stephan Sandy. I am diagnosed with a wife. Right? Just bringing it light here. But I'm here basically to give the perspective of men. I can't speak for all men, obviously, but to just give a male perspective on how we cope with maybe the news, or even more so how to give support, to inform men how to give support to women who may be going through with different medical issues, more so fibroids, and even a touch on like PCOS, you know. So it's good to be here. It's a privilege, and I'm looking forward to this session and what is being shared, and to learn from women especially.
All right. Okay, Stephan, thank you so much for sharing. And we're going to get straight into it, ladies and gentlemen who have joined us. It's going to be a round robin of sorts. And then depending on how the questions flow, we will continue the conversation. All right, so Alina shared, Cindy shared, but Natoya and Stephan, if you can share, Stephan, I know it will be you, it will be wifey's information, and I'm really happy she, is supporting you in this regard. Can you share when the diagnosis for you came through? Alina, you shared that last year was yours, and Cindy also shared last year. So Stephan, Natoya.
I'll say ladies first.
Okay.
I was hoping that you would have gone ahead, but nonetheless, for me, it was about 4 years ago where I just realized that my monthlies, they were becoming worse. You know, I was having a lot of back pain, my leg was cramping, I was throwing up. The period experience, the menstruation experience was just, it wasn't something I looked forward to. I really wish it could have disappeared. And so I went to the doctor, the gynecologist for that matter, to see, what was going on, because Clarissa and I would have spoken sometime before that, and she was saying, period's not really supposed to hurt, you're not supposed to be going through all of that, And then, other persons would have said that, and I said, but I feel like going through this so long, So only 4 years ago, I visited the gynecologist, and he said, well, you have a 2 centimeter fibroid. And I'm like, something that's 2 centimeters is causing me all this worries? No, man, fire burn, fire burn. You know, so that, do you want me to go further or just that? Okay, good.
So you can stop there for
Yeah.
now, and then I'll ask Stephan, and I actually want to bring in Alina and Cindy as well. So Stephan?
Yes. So, well, with my wife, before we got married, actually, she always used to say that, you know, actually, first of all, I went to a Fibroids Awareness session. I don't think it was Fibroids Awareness TT as yet.
As yet.
Right. And I went to this session with my then girlfriend, fiance, something of the sort at the time.
Okay.
And when Corey said, you know, so period's not supposed to hurt, I look at her kind of cross-eyed and I was like, oh, wait now, you'll be getting pain and thing. What's going on? I thought that's a normal, you know, because as far as I know, all women around me and my friend Alina all the time would always say, oh boy, I nearly end up in the hospital with this period thing. You know? And I'm like, what's going on? I said, well, Gavian, and she ain't that bad. You know, she ain't having a normal pain. But it's not, when Corey said it's not supposed to be painful, that is when I said, hey, it's have something going on here among women, especially in Tobago, young women especially, that is not being made aware of, you know, and that is when I realized, okay, I was like, you should be going to a gynecologist and let's check this out. And when she went, that is when she found out she had small fibroids. And yeah, that was about 6 years ago.
Okay. All right. So Cindy, if you can share because the next question I had, all the persons who spoke before somewhat incorporated. What events led to the diagnosis or led to you finding out last year? What were the, circumstances for you? And Alina, it would be the same question for you as well. So Cindy.
Okay, thank you very much, Therese. And I think everyone on the call would share that the revelation is that periods are not supposed to hurt. Now, this wasn't the triggering reason for me to go, but about the year before, 2 years before, 2020. So like 2 years before, when I was moving to Trinidad to do my undergrad, we took the boat and I went with my mentor and we were in the car park in Trinity Mall, and I had just gotten my period and it was really, really bad. Now she was there and she was like, what's going on with you? Like, your period is not supposed to hurt. Like, my period has never ever hurt. And I'm like, what? Like, I've been dying. I remember there was this one time I went to do a volunteer opportunity with a beach cleanup. And it was the first day and I thought, well, I can manage. I ended up in a fetal position on the beach. My boyfriend at the time had to leave what he was doing to come pick me up. I couldn't eat anything. I don't even drink alkaline blue waters to this day because I had nothing on my stomach and that was the only thing I drank and I vomited out everything. So it's like, you Google it and it was like, well, sometimes your period hurts and then sometimes it doesn't. So then I left it alone. And then last year, like I really wanted to put myself in a frame of mind that I would be moving to Jamaica to do my master's. So I'm like, let me check to make sure everything is good because I don't want to be in a foreign country and then I have to be dealing with all of it. So then I went to the dermatologist because I had a really, really bad year with acne. And she was like, do you have PCOS? And I was like, no. But she was like, yeah, acne could be hormonal, etc., etc. So you could probably check that out. And then one of my girlfriends, she has PCOS. So she would have gone through the whole diagnostic process. So I asked her for the information to go to the gynecologist to check it out. And then when I went, she was like, well, you don't have PCOS, but you have multiple intramural fibroids and they are 2.7 cm and we'll have to monitor them. And you also have a cyst on one of your ovaries. And I was like, wow, this is not what I came here for. But thank you. This really does put things into perspective. And now here we are.
All right, Cindy, thank you very much. Alina, could you share your series of events that led to your diagnosis?
Right. So as Stephan mentioned, I would get really bad period pains growing up in high school. When I was at university, I did go to a gynecologist and he did a full examination, and he, basically said that you don't have PCOS, everything looks fine. But, if I were to go on birth control, then that would assist with my period pain. And I did go on birth control. That would have been from maybe around 2004. And I stopped birth control in between now and then, but I finally came off of birth control in 2018. And to be honest, I had no issues with my periods after that, no symptoms otherwise. Last year, what happened is that, of course, we had the lockdown, and that came with a lot of eating. So I decided to get back into my fitness routine. Most people that know me know that I'm always exercising, I'm always working out. And I started really working out rigorously, and everywhere was getting toned, but my stomach was looking big. And I couldn't understand why my stomach wasn't going down. Why is my stomach getting bigger? So I did the only thing that most health professionals do. I self-diagnose. And I determined that, something must be wrong with my kidneys. I had it checked out, it was fine. I said it had to be a problem with my thyroids. I had it checked out, it was fine. I said, oh my gosh, maybe I have diabetes. I went and get tested, I was fine. And I just couldn't figure it out, but my stomach was always distended and I couldn't understand why I was bloating. I told my boyfriend, I said, you know what, I think that I might have fibroids and I want to go and check that out and see what is happening here. So we did make an appointment. We went to the ultrasound tech. And of course, I went into the room by myself first before he came in. And while the ultrasound technician is proceeding to investigate what's happening, I'm telling her, I know I already have fibroids. It has to be that. It can't be anything else. I just want to know what's happening. And she says, oh, well, congrats, you have a little one. And I was like, a little? My mind went blank because the last thing I was expecting was to be pregnant. Like, it was nowhere in my radar that it was possible that I was pregnant. And she said, it's a very early pregnancy. The baby is only the size of about 10 cents. She said, however, you have multiple fibroids.
Go ahead.
The largest fibroid at that time was 8 by 8 by 7 centimeters. She could not believe that not only was she surprised that I got pregnant, but she was surprised that my stomach was so flat for so long, because I had 6 fibroids growing inside of me, with the largest being 8 by 8, but the others were not tiny either. They were 5 by 6, 3 by 4. I had another 3 by 4. I had a 2 by 2. And so this is what I was experiencing. And that's how I was diagnosed. I was diagnosed with my fibroids and pregnancy. So one shot. Yeah.
Simultaneously. All right. So Alina, to be honest, your experience is really not a very extremely unique one, in that many women only find out they have fibroids when they get pregnant or they go for the first ultrasound. That is extremely normal.
Yeah.
But what came out generally throughout everything that has been said by each speaker is the cultural inaccuracy that exists and pervades in our space, that extremely painful periods are a rite of passage or they're a normal thing. And like you guys, what I learned a long time ago, that they're not supposed to be extremely painful. When they are extremely painful, there is a need to do further inquiry as to why they're so painful. All right, so as it relates to the lived experience, my next question for each guest is, how did you process the information? I have fibroids or another issue of the uterus. The diagnosis is confirmed. And for those who have tuned in, doctors, once you go to your specialist and you present, they will assess the symptoms that you have shared. Some may do a physical exam, as in literally touching the stomach, but the imaging to diagnose fibroids is an ultrasound. Some places also do MRIs to see, but the most popular and popularly used one is the ultrasound. So my question, how did you process the information? And I open the floor. Stephan, you are gonna share as a male, how did you process this information? And then we take it from there.
All right, well, I'll go first this time, seeing as you called my name last year. Basically, I was like, okay, what does this mean? Because when you had highlighted it in the first fibroid awareness session, you know, you showed images of different various sizes and when they are removed and that kind of thing. And I was worried. I was like, first of all, the doctor indicated, I think she had like about 6. And I was like, 6? Or is that 6 or 9? And I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do here? Yeah. So, but then when the doctor indicated that it was small and is not be alarmed or anything as yet, it's brought some calmness to me, but it still reminded me of the fact that I now have to make sure that she, yes, girlfriend, at the time, she's doing as much as possible to keep herself healthy and not contribute to the growth. So I had to do like research. I had to, you know, find out different things, find out from her, what did doctor say? You know, when she go to her visits, give her the support, go with her. So it meant for me to be more interested in women parts and women issues, yeah? So hence the reason why I also, anytime fibroid awareness had something, I would try to attend or encourage friends to attend. And worse yet was when when Alina told me she had a fibroid, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's gone all over again, you know? So it just made me, as a guy, more interested in finding out. And another reason why, without hesitancy, I said yes to being a part of this session, because I don't think I need to present, but at least all men should try to find out, especially if you're intending on having a relationship with a young woman, you should try to find out what it could result in, what are some of the things women will have to deal with when being diagnosed with fibroids, and how to give the support, you know. So it just made me more vigilant about my partner's health in relation to fibroids. Yeah.
All right, wonderful. Cindy, how did you process the information? What were your thoughts?
I think it still doesn't really hit me, because I know Alina would have shared, like, she felt like her body betrayed her because we are young, we're fit, we exercise. I used to run 1500. I played football. I was 21 at the time, and my doctor was like shocked. She was like, normally women don't get diagnosed until like the late 20s. And I'm like, so I have a life plan. I really had my life plan. Like, even before, I was like, you know, I could probably freeze my eggs because I'm going to be committed to my career, and I don't want that something happens later on in life that I probably can't have kids because, you know, I waited too long because, you know, we have our biological clock. And I'm like, well, I'm single. So it's like, I also have to take that into consideration, you know, the whole married with kids factoring into being a career woman and the commitment to not having a life that might be based here. So I had watched a video about freezing eggs, and I was like, maybe I should put some more effort into doing this research. And then when I came home, I had like my ultrasound papers, and I had them in an envelope. And like in the middle of the night, like, you know, there's this meme where you're out in a party and you would just randomly think about where your birth paper is. Like in the middle of the night, I would just jump out of my sleep and like look at it. And I'd be like, wow, this is my life. And I'm like, and then I made peace with it before like I told my friends. And I was like, I probably may not have kids, and that's gonna be okay. I just focusing on like doing all these things that I want to do in terms of traveling the world and building my brand and becoming the best clinical psychologist there is, and do some research and focus on that. And then it hit me after a while, and then I'm like, but I'm building this empire and this legacy, and I won't have anyone to share it with. And then I had to plan a speed dating thing. And I'm like, you know, when you're doing speed dating, sometimes they tell you make sure like you have like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 thing. So after I told my friends, I was like, so I guess now when I'm dating, I have to let people know that these are one of my 5 things. Like, you know, 1, I'm gonna be traveling the world a lot because my studies are gonna be international or regional, so I won't be here. 2, I have a very unique, well, not unique, but I have a very unique diagnosis for my age that may affect my ability to have kids. So either come with your kids or we adopt. I might compromise. That's how it's gonna be. And like I went through it and my friends were like, are you sure you're okay? Like we could talk about it. You could get a second diagnosis because my doctor did tell me in a year we'll monitor it. And I was like, no, I'm fine. Like I made my peace with probably not having kids. Because like it's only guys with kids that does be like anyway. I told them that. And I was like, so it's not a problem. It's not a problem. So then they were like, you sure like we could talk about it. And then like because of how diverse my life is, I have different friend groups. So then I had to manage who I'm gonna tell them. So I had my friends, and then I have this really good male friend. Like I told him, and he was very supportive about it. And then when I told my best friends, they were like, "You sure you did?" I were doing something that we weren't supposed to be doing, which took the edge off of it. So you know, like this whole quarantine Zoom session. So we didn't. So I told them, and they were like we could talk about it if you want. We're here for you, and like I really have an amazing support system across the board. And like some other things happen, and like every other day, like I have lived the many different possibilities in my head
mentally.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes I torture myself with it, but then I'm I didn't accept it. So it's like I think I accept it, but as a psychology student, I know that it's a process, and I'll probably go through the phases 100 other times as I evolve. So.
All right. So before I get to Alina and Natoya, your thought processes have actually intrigued me. But I want to interject immediately as it relates to those fears surrounding fertility and the ability to have children. The very fact that Dr. Williams is here as a testimony of pregnancy is not, pregnancy won't stop because of fibroids. And I'm saying that broadly, because dependent on the size of the fibroid, the location of a fibroid, and a number of other factors, it can. But fertility in general, it is not because of the woman only or the woman first. Medicine breaks it up into 3 parts. So infertility is affected by 1/3 female, 1/3 male, and then 1/3 a host of others. It's in the other category, all right? So you can have fibroids and have a pregnancy, a very normal pregnancy, or if I could start before Alina shares, you could also have a pregnancy that may be high risk or extremely painful, or something she shared as we had the lead up to this, the gestational age of your pregnancy may not match how you look. So Alina actually shared, as she was preparing for today, an image of herself where we used it and we asked persons, how far along or how many weeks does Dr. Williams look? And at that time, we got the 30 weeks, the 34, big numbers closer to delivery time when she was only 26 weeks, right? So your gestational age may not match how you really look, but there are a number of things. So the non-psychologist is trying to tell the psychologist as you process the information that a diagnosis of fibroids and PCOS and other issues of the uterus is not the end all or be all. In fact, last year when we had our PCOS session, again, that misconception, okay, I have PCOS, so I can't have kids. And then we actually had one person sharing, hey, I was told this, I will never have kids, and I have 4. And I know many persons with the PCOS diagnosis as well who have multiple children after being told. But that gets us into a deeper conversation as it relates to lifestyle changes, where Toya can come in, and those types of conversations, even treatment options. All right, so let me stop blabbing and let me move along to Alina, and then I'll get to Toya. Alina, how did you process this information? I mean, you shared it, You felt betrayed by your body, and I know you're a very expressive person. So tell us more. How did you process this information?
Okay, so I was in a very unique situation because I had to process good news and bad news together. You know, on one hand, I am processing this new diagnosis of fibroids, which at the point in time, I really felt angry. I was angry at my body. I was angry at God. I was angry at maybe things I did in the past, like did I drink too much alcohol? Was it that I ate too much red meat? You know, did I take too much sugar when I was making my tea? Things like that, you know. I was really angry, especially at my body. I was also at the same time elated. You know, there's life growing inside of me, and I never expected to be in that position, but I was happy to know that, you know, I would be possibly having a child with the person that I love. And for me, I went through the phase of feeling a lot of resentment towards my body as well. I felt like I had failed in some way. And I was especially angry because, you know, if a lot of people know me, they know that I went through the phase of feeling a lot of resentment towards my body as well. I felt like I had failed. Yeah. I take a lot of care with my body. So I have been exercising, and for me, exercising wasn't something to do. It was who I am, you know, it was my identity. And eating healthy too. I am a person, I don't snack. My coworkers would always say, Alina, you know, we don't see you eating snacks. And I would say, I'm not eating snacks. If I have to get calories into my body, it's going to be because I'm eating food, not because I'm eating snacks. So I felt like I did so much to take care of myself to be diagnosed, not just with fibroids, but with massive fibroids. I mean, 8 by 8 by 8 centimeters we're talking about, you know, and this is at the beginning of my pregnancy. At the end of my pregnancy, it was 14 by 14 by 13. So I went through that feeling of not being able to experience the full joy of my pregnancy because I was simultaneously hurting, I was simultaneously angry, and I experienced a lot of resentment towards my body. Eventually, I did try to accept it for what it was, and I had tremendous support from my parents, from my boyfriend, from my friends. Those around me really supported me. But I would fluctuate between being extremely happy and grateful to being very angry at my body. I felt like sometimes it was failing me. And especially when I would go to do my ultrasound and the ultrasound tech would look at me, she would say, oh, your poor body is going to suffer. You know, your stomach is going to get really big because of these fibroids. Every ultrasound appointment I had, the fibroids kept growing. So I kept hearing the numbers going up. So it was 8 by 8, 8 by 9, 9 by 10, 10 by 11. And, you know, that really had an impact on me. I felt like I was letting down my son. So I would always tell my boyfriend, I'm not providing a right environment for my son to grow in. I said, you know, he's not even in this world already, and I'm already messing up, you know, because I was so anxious about his ability to grow well inside of me. Whether he would have enough space, the impact that it would have on his own development. And so I really went through the motions. I felt like I felt cheated out of the full experience of being able to share with people that I'm pregnant, I'm having a child, because at the same time I had to say, you know, but I have fibroids, so there's this risk. I might have a miscarriage. I was told I'm going to bleed a lot. I was told about the pain, and I'll share the experience of the pain later on. But yes, I could not just say I'm pregnant without giving this news that, hey, but I also have fibroids too.
All right. And, you know, a very interesting comment came in from, I think it's a Natalie's name I saw on the side there, as it relates to healthcare providers being a bit more sensitive when sharing information. Because on the moment you started sharing how the messages or how the messaging came across to you, I also felt that way. And I have felt that way throughout my journey. My very first experience with any medical practitioner in this Trinidad and Tobago space when I was diagnosed. And like Cindy, I was diagnosed pretty young. Cindy said she was 20, I was actually 19. And in hindsight, I hindsight is 2020. So I know I was being affected during my teenage years because I had extremely horrible menses as well and really bad hormonal acne. But of course, we think, it's a normal thing. And so I often feel that way. And then Dr. Denon, who's on the live this evening, he just shared that many health practitioners can become numb to the experience. And that is also a thought that I often have when I think about the insensitivity, because it's something they see so much. And I think it's also a coping mechanism, if I don't want to speak out a term, because I am sure having to deal with persons constantly who are in a lot of pain or have very concerning conditions, that could definitely take a toll on one mentally as well, and how they process information and respond to it. All right, so thank you for sharing, Dr. Williams. Natoya, how did you process your information?
Or should I say, how did I unprocess my information?
Come on now.
I had a little bit of what Cindy experienced and what Dr. Alina experienced. The little bit is that I wondered about my children, right? And then Dr. Alina just felt that, hey, what did I do to cause this upon myself? I started to ask that because I started to change my life around as it relates to eating unprocessed in 2009. Right? So 4 years ago would have been when? 2017, 18. And that's when, I got the
diagnosis.
And I'm like, what? Why? How? Who invited you? That's how I felt. I just, for a very short moment, I started having those thoughts. But then I had to remind myself who I am. And I dealt with it totally differently. I said, there's no way that I am going to have a fibroid. I said, there's no way a fibroid is going to grow inside of my fabulous body.
Come on now.
I said, there's absolutely no way that I, Natoya Johnson, will be experiencing this. And guys, to be honest, that's how I dealt with it. I don't even know if the thing is still there, but I don't have painful periods. I didn't get to go back recently to check on that. But I know I made the changes. I know the experience is different, and mentally I removed it because this is my body. And that is one of the concepts that I have. And that's one of the concepts I live by. I am in charge of me and my organs and my blood and my brain and my heart and everything. And I believe so much because I've seen it. I've seen it happen. I've done it myself and seen it happen, that I have removed negative things that I'm experiencing for myself. And sometimes the more we tell ourselves, oh gosh, I can't take this, this is real pressure, the more we amplify that, the more it is magnified. So I didn't give that any attention. And that is how I dealt with it. So for a short time, I had a little Cindy and a little Alina, and then I had to go into Natoya. And see.
All right.
Yeah, time to.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Alina wants to respond. Yeah?
Could I just say something that I forgot to mention too? One thing that I did also experience that was really shocking for me was shame. I actually felt ashamed that I had this diagnosis, and I'll explain why. I didn't understand anything about fibroids before. And so I kept thinking that it was something that I did wrong, and I didn't want people to know. It's like I didn't want anybody to know that I had this diagnosis of fibroids. I wanted to keep it very quiet, very hush-hush, don't say a word. It took me a while to reveal my pregnancy because I don't want anybody to know anything about the fibroids aspect of it, And it's interesting because I work in mental health, and normally I would tell my patients that there's no need to be ashamed of having a mental illness because it's not something that you did wrong. Yet here I was not extending the same compassion towards myself, and I listened to a lecture by Dr. Mohammed recently on TV6, I believe it was Morning Edition, and she spoke about fibroids having a very strong genetic component. And really and truly, my paternal grandmother had fibroids, my paternal aunts had fibroids, and so there is that huge genetic component for me. And shame was something I had to get over. So I remember once I had my baby, once I got through that postpartum period, I'm like, message Coris and tell Coris, I am going to talk about this. This is one way that you encourage other people. And it's also to help people that go through this in silence, that feel like, you know, this is something I did wrong or I'm being punished in some way, that is not the case, you know.
And I think that's a good point for us to pivot to another part of the conversation. But I definitely want to echo the sentiments for anyone who is listening out there. There are so many risk factors involved, and I will encourage you to plug here now, check out our YouTube channel, check out our Instagram page, visit our website. We share information or reach out directly. We share information directly so you'd have a better understanding. That is why we were formed, advocacy and awareness, because quite frankly, fibroids are an extremely common diagnosis. And in fact, fibroids affect women of Afro descent at exponentially higher numbers than any other ethnicity. So some statistics, and we're talking when we do research internationally, the US, because that's where I got a lot of my information from. We are now working on building research for the Trinidad and Tobago space, but internationally, they'll tell you 80% of women will have fibroids. That's millions across the world. But again, culture, talking openly about issues of the uterus, you know, that pride that is placed on being able to have children. You know, I lived in Jamaica. That was the first time I heard the term mule being used to refer to a woman who can't have children. Those things are linked to the conversation because misinformation is in the space. So you associate any issue of the uterus. Okay, 1 second, guys. You associate any issue of the uterus with challenges. All right, guys, just give me 1 second. Let me check the room because I'm noticing something there. All right, so let's go. And because of that association, we really are ashamed. We try to hide it. We don't want to talk about it. We think persons will look down on us, cast aspersions, that kind of thing. But my encouragement again, fibroids or diagnosis of fibroids or any issue of the uterus is not the end. It's absolutely not the end. And once you have the information, sufficient information to make the right and the best choice for you, you, like myself, like Alina, like Natoya, like Cindy, and like many other women can process, can cope, and can overcome because there are ways and methods to treat with issues of the uterus, fibroids, PCOS, endometriosis, and others. All right, so I want us to get into sharing your journey now. So Alina, I'm gonna start with you. The pregnancy and fibroid experience. Natoya, then I'll move to you. Coping through lifestyle change, your experience. Cindy, you can then share your experience as a young person recently diagnosed and maybe how support systems, organizations like Fibroid Awareness TT, the value and what they can do for you. And then Stephan, your experience as supportive partner, supportive husband, what that experience has been like for you. So Alina, the floor is yours.
Okay. So as I mentioned before, I was diagnosed with fibroids and a very early pregnancy, right? Once I was diagnosed with the pregnancy as well as the fibroids, I immediately went to my gynecologist to determine how to move forward. And I remember that first session, he mentioned 3 things. You know, he said 3 things could happen. You could either have an early miscarriage, you could either have a lot of bleeding throughout the pregnancy, or you could have something called red degeneration or fibroid degeneration, right? And he explained that in the fibroid degeneration, the pain could get so bad that throughout the pregnancy, I may have to be on opioids. Now, I am someone with a very high pain tolerance. So when he mentioned, I see Stephan shaking his head, when he mentioned the issue of pain, I was like, nah, that's the least of my concern. My major concern is the pregnancy and the bleeding. I told my parents about it and what may happen. And, you know, I went through this process where I said, God, this is up to you. I will do my part. And if you want this pregnancy to continue to the end, then I would leave it in your hands. I went through the first trimester experiencing a lot of pain, but the pain was due to the fact that my stomach was growing rapidly. So by the time I was 2 months pregnant, I was already looking like about 4 or 5 months. So I started having a lot of back pain and a lot of what we call round ligament pain very early on. I was soaking in the pool or soaking in the beach once we weren't under lockdown because I was in so much pain very early. At the start of my second trimester, I woke up one morning and it was like I was experiencing pregnancy pain on steroids. The pain was excruciating. There aren't sufficient words for me to explain how excruciating this pain was, but it was a Monday morning, the 11th of January, I believe, and I remember waking up, preparing to go to work, and I told my boyfriend, I said, we have to go to the hospital now. Something is wrong. This pain is too much. I went up to the hospital and at accident and emergency, I was informed that I was experiencing red degeneration pains. And I'm like, I heard that term before, you know. I'm like, this is the term the doctor mentioned, but because he spoke about pain and I know that I could tolerate pain, I really didn't take him on. But the extent of that pain was debilitating. The pain was so much that I was actually experiencing contractions and I didn't know. So I remember the doctor asking me, are you having contractions? And I'm like, I don't know what contractions feel like. This is my first pregnancy. I am not sure. All I know is that I feel like I'm having period pains that are on steroids. They're so intense. You know, they hooked me up to the CTG machine and they did all the checks. And she was like, you're having contractions and these contractions are causing a threatened preterm, they could threaten preterm labor, right? So here I was at 23 weeks going into 24 weeks at the risk of going into labor. Of course, the NICU unit up at the hospital would not have been able to handle an early delivery to that extent. So already they started talking about having to give me steroid injections to speed up the development of my baby's lungs, and that they would have to manage my pain in a very rigorous and aggressive way, because once I am in pain, I am going to experience contractions. And once I'm experiencing contractions, there's the threat of, yes. So I was on petadine injections 3 times a day. Also, once you're on petadine, you're given Gravol as well, 3 times a day. I was on other medications to manage my blood pressure went up. So I was on nifedipine. And then I was also getting steroid injections to help speed up the delivery of my baby's lungs in the event that he were to come early. Corey's, it was such a terrible experience for me. I mean, you could imagine getting about 6 to 8 injections a day. By the end of that week, I started getting the injections on my leg because they had run out of space on my bottom.
On your bottom.
Yeah, both cheeks, they were just alternating between different cheeks when the day come, you know. That is the extent of the pain I was in. And I was practically like a zombie in the hospital because Gravol alone could have anybody like a zombie, but I was on Gravol with the petadine.
And petadine, yeah.
And I remember at that time, my boyfriend, one time he came to visit me, and I remember telling him, you know, no one would ever want to be in this position. No one would want to be getting so much injections in one day just to be able to go through this. And he said, you know, something that really changed my outlook throughout the pregnancy. He said, actually, there are people that would probably do anything to be in your position because you still have hope.
Perspective.
You still have hope. There is the hope that you could still have this successful pregnancy. After about maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks, I was discharged, but I was discharged now on tramadol 3 times a day, again with the Gravol 3 times a day and other medication. And then I was discharged on bed rest. And I don't know if bed rest sounds glorious to people because there's this image that you lie down in bed whole day and people are waiting on you hand and foot. You know, they bring you food, you don't have to do any work. But bed rest was torture for me. One, I am very independent and very accustomed to being active, but also the medication that I was discharged on, for me, it had a very negative reaction. So tramadol actually caused me to be very confused. I experienced psychomotor retardation, that is like extremely slow movements. I was just slow. I experienced slow processing speed. So somebody would ask me a question and it will take forever for me to give the answer. Even when I responded, it was like I was slurring as if I was just drunk. And that was my life for a while, you know, just constantly being drugged up. And all the doctors would say is that you can't experience pain. Once you experience pain, you're going to have contractions and it's going to cause you to go into labor. And so just for those that don't understand red degeneration, what happens is that my baby was taking away blood supply from the fibroid, so to speak. So, you know, the fibroid is there living and breathing and operating on a supply of blood. And here comes my baby now taking away some of that.
Right, I'm here now. You need to take a back seat.
Yes, the fibroid is angry, like where you come out from, nobody invited you here, you are taking this thing away from me. And so because the fibroid is having a decrease in that blood supply, it starts to experience necrosis or it's degenerating. Now, degeneration sounds good because it gives you the impression that it's kind of mashing up and getting smaller, but it wasn't that, it was getting smaller. And maybe Dr. Armstrong could explain, I know she's on the chat, maybe
on this chat, yeah,
what takes place there, but I was experiencing degeneration while my fibroids were still getting bigger and bigger, right? And so I was in extreme pain. So one of my fibroids was a lower uterine segment fibroid. It's right down at the base, basically, of my stomach. And that was the largest one. So that was the one that went from 8 by 8 centimeters to 14 by 14. And because of the location of the fibroid, I unfortunately had to have a C-section. Actually, you know, I shouldn't say unfortunately, because having a C-section allowed me to be a mother. So I had a C-section. And what was the unfortunate part is that I had a classical cut C-section. And that was a big blow to me. You know, I knew from the beginning, my doctor informed me that, hey, you may not have a vaginal delivery because of the location and the size of your fibroid. The baby's head just would not pass through that canal. There's no space. But I expected, okay, fine, it's not a vaginal delivery, but at least it will be a sexy bikini
C-section cut.
C-section that's going to heal quickly and I'll be back to exercising.
Oh, no.
You know, but I had a classical cut. So for those that don't know, that's the cut down the midline. And it was really, really painful. You know, the recovery from that type of C-section was also excruciating. I felt like from the beginning of my pregnancy up until a good bit of period postpartum, I was just living in pain because my fibroids were either growing or degenerating or just causing a lot of problems. There was one fibroid in the way when they were entering me via the classical cut C-section. And so they had to remove that one fibroid. So I did have a myomectomy in the process of that C-section. However, they were not able to, not that they were not able to, but it's not tradition to remove fibroids while you're having a C-section. And I know my wish would have been that they could have taken out that fibroid when I had the C-section. But because of the threat of blood loss, that was not possible. And to be honest, even though they didn't remove the large fibroid, I still had to have a blood transfusion done after my C-section. And once I was back on the ward, I was given oxytocin so that my uterus could start contracting. But you could imagine the experience of a uterus contracting with this massive fibroid in the way. So I was in a lot of pain following my delivery. The pain was so bad that at one point I felt it would have been better if I died. I was in so much pain. Right after having the C-section, I was given Petadine. I was given another dose of Petadine. I was still in pain. I was given tramadol via IV or IM, I can't remember, maybe IM injection. I was still in pain. And it was maybe I delivered around 3 p.m. It was perhaps around 9:30 p.m. that they determined I needed to be on morphine. And so I was then placed on morphine for about 2 days. And because of that, I was not able to breastfeed. I couldn't breastfeed initially. I couldn't spend that, you know, we call it the golden hour.
Yeah.
I didn't have that with my son. He had to be given formula for the first few days because you can't breastfeed once you're on morphine. And one of my things when I realized that I was pregnant is that I always knew I wanted to breastfeed. Always, that was a big thing for me, and not being able to experience that was painful. And it affected our breastfeeding relationship initially. So I had to be pumping continuously and feeding via bottle. And it was by prayers. I literally used to go down on my knees and pray to God that I would be able to breastfeed my son. And maybe about a month after, just feeding via pumping, I was able to establish a solid breastfeeding relationship. And now that's all we do. We breastfeed, and I wake up all hours of the night breastfeed. Even though I pump and there's milk in the fridge or the freezer, I still just breastfeed because I feel like I'm compensating, you know. But I was in a lot of pain, and I have been in a lot of pain due to these fibroids. They affected me not just physically, but emotionally. And mentally. Yeah, they took a toll on me, and I feel like they robbed me of having a wonderful pregnancy experience. But I must say that because of the support that I had from my boyfriend, he was phenomenal at that time, as well as my mom, my dad, my brother. I have an aunt also that would always check in on me. They really helped me to get through this experience with pregnancy. I mean, if I knew that I had fibroids, maybe I would have done something about it earlier. You know, the impact that would have had on the pregnancy, but really and truly, it was just a double whammy that I had to go through, and I will never forget the pain. The pain, I am so sensitive to pain now that even if I have a slight pain anywhere in my body, it's almost as if I had a kind of a post-traumatic reaction to it. So now I'm very terrified of pain, even though I had a high sensitivity for pain before, you know, and that's been my experience.
Alina, taking out the doctor now. This is cousin and friend from baby talking here now. Thank you so much for sharing openly your experience. Of course, I must let everyone who is listening know that this is your experience, and it's eye-opening, because this definitely can be the journey for someone with fibroids who gets pregnant. Of course, I must also share that you can have fibroids and really absolutely have an uneventful pregnancy. You go through and baby comes. But thank you for sharing, because you know our mantra, when you stand and share your story in a powerful way, you not only heal yourself, but you heal others on the journey. And fibroids, I often say, always say, not often, always say, fibroids alone know where they come from. I say they come from the pit of hell, and they need to go back where they come from. Medicine tells us that there's no cause. We can't say what causes fibroids, but they are linked to estrogen dominance. They are linked to hormones. And of course, you have the risk factors, being of Afro descent, your diet, obesity, starting your menses early, the genetic link. There are quite a number of factors that may make you predisposed to developing fibroids. But I'm happy that you have shared your journey. And I'm most happy because your journey is one of triumph. And it really is a reminder that fibroids, a diagnosis of fibroids is not the end. And it's also not something that we should be ashamed of, because ultimately we do not have control, particularly because of cultural inaccuracies, particularly because of the foods and the things that we're exposed to. Natoya will share her experience living the unprocessed lifestyle. And while she has been able to create, a business out of it, accessing unprocessed foods is not the easiest thing. She might tell me otherwise, but our culture, our space, it's not the easiest, it's not the cheapest. And how we are socialized, we have a lot of unlearning to do with how we treat our bodies, how we feed our bodies. Fibroids are linked to our diet, and not only our literal diet, but stress also contributes to the growth of fibroids in the body. But we'll definitely be continuing our Let's Talk sessions so that we could always revert to general conversations about fibroids, because there's misinformation in this space and we can never share the information enough. So all of you who are tuned in via Facebook Live here in the Zoom space, we will be talking about fibroids in the future. Fibroids, the very basics, what they are, what the predisposing factors are, how you can treat fibroids. And then of course, we'll have a Q&A shortly where you could ask some questions and you'll get some responses. But of course, we always encourage you to reach out to Fibroid Awareness TT. We are here to support and give advice and generally just be a repository of information for women, girls, and wider society. Natoya, your experience of the unprocessed life, because we are big champions for lifestyle change within Fibroid Awareness TT as well.
Oh, let's go. That's where we are, and that's where I stand. And I want to send some love to you, Dr. Alina. Just keep moving forward. Just take care of yourself and just stand strong, okay? Yeah. You have me here. I don't even wear mascara, and you have me here like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? But anyhow, Chorus, you said something. You said our culture, right? And I just wanted to start with that before I get into how my lifestyle change helped me, and it can also help every single one of us. And that's the problem, our culture. We believe, like today, I'm sure some of our plates, and I have to say, oh, because I once was there, and I don't want to come across as if I'm judging anyone or making you feel like, hey, this, that, the other. But we have to change the culture and really understand that we are living creatures and we have to feed ourselves things that are alive. So we can't have a plate full of things that are dead and things that have been dead a very long time now, right? Because I'm sure you wouldn't, if you know that a chicken or whatever it is might have been dead and been in a freezer for 4 months, would you buy it? But we don't know, we don't pay attention to these things. We just want to have our baked chicken and our pie with potato salad and breadfruit salad with rice, and we just have 3 cucumbers. How is that really compensating for the life that you really want to live? 3 cucumbers cannot compensate for a living, this whole living earth, right? Don't feel anyhow. That's just what I want you to understand, right? But that's how I cope with it. I used to love, as a teenager, I love roti and Italian food and stuff. So I ate, I ate, freely, as Dr. Alina, I used to exercise and just be real awesome and felt that, that would compensate for the life that I'm living, so I ate whatever I felt like. However, the time 4 years ago, I now started to blame myself for how I live. I was like, oh my gosh, why is this happening? This should not happen. Nonetheless, as I said, I switched into, execution mode because this thing is not supposed to be part of my body. I don't want you there. You're not welcome. That's how I dealt with it, right? So I just started to eliminate certain things in my life. One of the things I also want every single person listening to do is start making a food journal. Pay attention to the things that when you eat them, what kind of reaction you get. And that's what I started off by doing, right? So cheese for me came off my list almost immediately. I got headache, my ear was itching. I found that my this might sound a little gross. I know a lot of persons are listening all over, but my discharge also changed, and I had to pay attention to that because this was not normal to me, right? So take a food journal. That's what I did. I started journaling, okay, this is what happens when I eat this. This is what happens when I eat this. Okay, bye-bye cheese, bye-bye flour. And this just went on and on. So I started to just replace certain things and make my own things. And of course, as you said, that's how Surf Fresco started. I started to make things that I really enjoy in the best way that I know how. So I use less this, I use more of this or that or whatever. But the elimination process was the things that really caused the pains in my joints, in my ear, just full body. It was so uncomfortable sometimes when I ate flour. I felt like, what's going on with me, So it was pretty simple for me because let me don't say pretty simple because I love to eat, right? I know if my husband is listening, he will be saying, what? Because I would take a whole hour or so to decide if we're gonna eat out. Babe, listen, can they send us the menu before? I really wanna know what's on that menu, so I could really combine what I'm gonna have and yeah, and that's the next thing. Sometimes some of the things that we eat, combining them, they don't work together because all of these things, they have a science how they're gonna digest. And the combination now might cause some sort of fermentation or acidity. And ultimately, we want our bodies to be alkaline, right? So I'm gonna knock on a lot of person's doors right now by saying the kale and the pineapple smoothies are no, that's just, you're just taking a whole bottle of acid into your body, So guess what? We have to just pay attention to that. So that's how I dealt with it. I really started doing research and just changed my life. And it just became so normal after a very short space of time. And I feel great. And that's it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Toy. So before I welcome Cindy and Stephan, what I will share here is that we are strong advocates in Fibroid Awareness Trinidad and Tobago for lifestyle change. The healthier you are, the better you will feel. There are persons who have shared with a change in diet, the symptoms associated with fibroids have lessened. In addition to symptoms lessening, some persons have also reported seeing shrinkages in the size of the fibroids. However, what I can share from the naturopathic perspective, Dr. Malaika Agbeko, who is one of the doctors in our support circle, and let me also shout out Dr. Marielle Armstrong, who is another amazing doctor in our support circle who is here with us in live. Dr. Agbeko, she has shared during presentations we've done in the past, once fibroids get beyond a certain size, the encouragement is to get them out. right? And treatment depends on the individual. You have to make the choice based on the information available to you, your circumstance, and of course, your conversation with your medical provider. And we also encourage, if you want a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, up to 10th opinion, seek it, because ultimately it is your body. You know how you feel. And that actually links right back to the very first conversation, the very first experience that I shared. And when I returned home, the very first doctor I went to, I knew immediately that person would not, let me say it again, would not be touching my body. I made that choice immediately because of how that person made me feel as an individual. Notwithstanding, getting back to the conversation about lifestyle change, what we feed our body will feed the fibroids. That's the truth. So lifestyle change is extremely important. We did a series in the past on fibroid and foods. We have the information that we could share via email, or if you reach out to us directly. And we're also we also have a book in the works on what can I eat, because many times when you get a diagnosis or you have issues, they tell you, okay, you can't eat this, you can't eat that. So what can I eat then? So that is what we're working on also, so that we could share the information. So lifestyle change definitely helps with coping and helps with some of the symptoms. Again, it's really an individual experience and an individual journey. And my mind actually goes to a lady by the name of Dr. Sexiad in Jamaica. She has founded an organization called Her Flow. And her experience also stemmed from being diagnosed with fibroids, changing her lifestyle completely, and then having improved quality of life. The route I went was a mixture. I had a myomectomy, which is open surgery to remove the fibroids, and then mixing, because I'm still not walking a very strict road like Toya, but I'm getting there as it relates to processing the diet. But I can definitely identify with how changing eating habits really have a phenomenal positive impact on the body and even how you cope with fibroid symptoms. All right. Stephan, I'll ask you, and then I'll bring in Cindy. So Stephan, share your experience. You gave us a snippet in that, you know, the diagnosis, and then you got worried, and that prompted you to get into finding information, get into researching so that you could be a greater support. And that's who you are by nature. But share what your journey has been like as a male supporting someone. And in your case, you have a lovely wife, but you also have friends in your circle, and you've provided support in that regard as well. How has your experience been, your lived fibroid experience?
Right, so as I indicated before, the diagnosis was that the fibroids my wife had, well, at the time, fiance, girlfriend, they were small. I think the biggest one got to 2 or 3 centimeters, but they were about 9, right? The doctor did indicate to me, and I guess most women in here in Tobago, if you're in Tobago, the gynecologist that I went by, he said, "Brethren, how are you dealing? You're not putting nothing," you know? So I say, hey, you know, I want to, you know, do the whole get married and, you know, don't rush me. But anyway, because he was indicating at the time that if she becomes pregnant, it could help in reducing I guess reducing the rates of growth or the degeneration of the fibroids. I must say, she went regular to the doctor to make sure that, you know, see what the size is like. So she was doing ultrasounds. I think it was about 3 months apart. Every 3 months, I think she was going. When she found out, actually, she was pregnant, she had to make sure that, you know, and after a while, the what do they call the people? Not the gynecologist, the person who does the ultrasound. She
Radiologist?
said, the radiologist, thank you. Yes,
You're welcome.
the radiologist said, I'm not seeing anything here. And I was like, what? I say, wait, boy. Like the doctor, you know what he was talking about? Because it's either I do something right or, you know, the body just respond well. But anyway, it seemed as if the fibroids went away. Seemed as if the baby was growing well. And then in the middle of it, I think she saw some again. So I'm like, oh my gosh, is this going to affect the pregnancy? You know, you're worried. So you continue giving the support, like going to the sessions with the gynecologist, the radiologist, everything. Sometimes missing work, well, going to work late. But at the end of the day, you know, as a man, especially, you know, with a wife who is pregnant, you want to give optimal support, because guess what? Some persons might worry about work, but what you're working for? You're working for money to provide for your family. That's all. So if you don't have a family, if you don't have your wife, whether it be loss of son or child, I should say, during pregnancy, or whether it be her mental health, if she's not well, then what is the purpose of me working? I'm working to provide for a family. That's all. Right. So thankfully, everything went well with the pregnancy. But one of the things I wanted to mention as it relates to before even getting pregnant, she was diagnosed also with PCOS.
Mm-hmm.
And when they indicated that she was pregnant, they said, wait, you're pregnant? And you have PCOS, you know? Again, research, you know, she was doing her temperature checks regularly. Like I would wake up in the morning, not to an alarm, my phone alarm, it's her temperature, digital temperature going beep, 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 beep. Every day she's checking her temperature, looking at ovulation, that kind of thing. And after a while, I was like, hey, yeah, you know, I think you're inside it, you know? So you really, as a man, you really have to, or supporting partner, you really have to be in tandem with what they are, the information that is being provided to your spouse or to your partner, and try to understand and see how you could help in supporting them processing that information. You know, all in all, pregnancy went well. She didn't have to do a C-section or anything, but after pregnancy, this fibroids was still there. So even after pregnancy, she had to, you know, maintain proper eating diets and that kind of thing, to the point that now, actually today I made vegetarian cheese. Yes, it exists. Yes, vegetarian cheese. I haven't tasted milk, like cow's milk, since finding out that she was diagnosed with fibroids, because in solidarity, I had to drink almond milk. And yes, almond milk is milk. I think it's even the better taste of milk. I believe cow's milk is for cows, not for humans.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I myself feel cleaner inside. I mean, again, I ain't telling anybody, you know, this milk is better than that milk. But for me, and thus far, even for my now son, who is 1 year, he loves almond milk. And his calcium is like right up there. You know, his nails growing long every minute as we cut his nails and stuff. So if you're looking for a good source of calcium, almond milk, I'm just saying, you know, and it augurs well for your health, uterus health, everything too. But you really have to take a look at the information and give that support. Show that solidarity. You don't say, okay, well, you can't have ice cream, so I go in and buy a Häagen-Dazs and eat it in front of your face. No, that is not support, fellas. No, right? So up to this week here, I actually had vegan ice cream yesterday, right here in Tobago. you know, so, and I ain't gonna lie, Ola, it is relevant. Yes. TZ Treats, I think it is, in Mason Hall. Trust me. So you really have to make that lifestyle change to give the support, right? So it's not your partner have fibroids. You have to look at this as we have fibroids here.
Oh, come on now.
Yeah. Her exercise routines. You know, I had to be like, hey, you had exercise this week, what going on? I thought you said I was going to do some squats and thing. You know, so you really have to be intentional about it, you know? So basically that was, it might not have been, and thankfully, it may not have been one like what Alina would have experienced. But even Alina as my friend, I remember when she had it, when she told me the size initially, and she was like, boy, I had to drink these set of green drinks, and she making the drinks, and I'm like, wait, boy, let me see if I could try them things too. So I remember I told her I do some ginger and carrot a day, you know, trying to be supportive at that point in time, you know, just showing that solidarity and that understanding. I mean, I can't and I won't be able to feel the pain that she has, but just to show, okay, listen, I'm in it with you. And I think more men need to come out in that regard. Yeah, that's my son there. Also, the culture change that everyone spoke about. I think women need to feel more comfortable in coming to their partners in saying what their situation is. Thankfully, my wife, she's comfortable in coming to me, but don't be afraid of any stereotyping or I wonder what he might think. It's just how you put over the information, one, and tell him, if you don't know how to say it, carry him to the gynecologist with you. And even speak to a gynecologist before and let him know the concerns you might have in telling your partner or your husband or whatever, you know? It will help him put across that information for the man in your life. Yeah, so that's my piece.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Stephan, for sharing. Toya was real rooting in the back there because, you know, she is Miss Unprocessed.
Can I step in? Well done, Stephan. That is awesome. That's the balance that we need. We don't need to be cooking two different pots. We need to really have the whole healthy experience together because he said he's feeling lighter, he's actually feeling better. He wasn't expecting this. He was actually doing that for her, but he benefited from it because this is an experience together. Listen, you have me over here. I'm like, yes, like I look at that football, just so excited about this. I'm really happy to hear this. And I really support men who are supportive. And of course, I've seen the chat blowing up as well, Corey. So I know persons are really saying, listen, yes, Stephan, we need a man like Stephan, but Stephan, yes, it's an amazing thing to have.
Oh gosh.
Corey, what could I say too? That
yes.
Just to support what Stephan has said, my experience is that my partner was extremely supportive and he attended every single session that I had, whether that session was with the gynecologist or with the ultrasound technician. And that helped because, you know, he was there getting the information firsthand as well. So while we were being taught or while certain things were being explained to us, it was being explained to both of us. And, you know, as a patient, sometimes when you get bad news, your brain just shuts down and you stop processing information.
Yes.
And so it was good when he was there because once something negative came up, my brain just kind of latched onto that, and anything else that was said after, I just didn't know about it. So him being there was really helpful. And so, yeah, I encourage more men. I'm so happy that Stephan said she didn't have fibroids, we had it. And that's my experience of this, you know, as much as the physical pain was there and the mental and emotional trauma, it could have been 1,000 times worse if my partner was not as supportive as he was, definitely.
That's definitely true. We cannot discount the value of having the support we cannot discount the value of having the support. And that is why when Fibroid TT was founded and when I started planning for outreach and how we will share information and who we will target, we have always included men in the conversation. I mean, we have gone so far as having sessions for men only and how men can cope, bringing in mental health experts to speak to that, because we don't exist in a space alone. We exist, we coexist, whether romantically or platonic friendships or familial, brother, uncle, father, you name it, we all coexist. And so it's important. That word keeps coming up a lot, culture, what we've practiced, what is the norm in our space. And we have a lot of unlearning to do. We definitely have to shift the narrative, and it's conversations like these, open conversations like these, that really transform lives and minds. So Stephan, thank you. And thank you to all the guests. So we're gonna go quickly into Cindy now, and then we'll open the floor for questions. If anyone has any questions, and then we'll wrap up because we're fast approaching 6:30. I mean, we don't have a time limit, but the attention span and realistically how long we're gonna have a live for on Facebook that people can go back and listen to, or for us to share on our YouTube channel, right? So Cindy, here's where I'll bring you in. You shared when you first got your diagnosis last year, as a young person, you picked it apart mentally. You had so many thoughts. You reached the point of, the 5 things you have to share when you did, like you just had a full mental experience, right? Can you share a bit more of what your experience has been like post-diagnosis? I mean, even coping physically with the body. Are you one of those who, okay, you have fibroids, but it's not really affecting you, or you had one bad menstrual cycle, the one that, opened the door for you to go check things out, and it continued, or like Alina and Stephan's wife presented 2 different ends of the spectrum. Alina presented the spectrum of a high-risk pregnancy versus Stephan's wife, who had fibroids and PCOS. PCOS told her that she was never supposed to have children. Fibroids, she had fibroids and a very quote-unquote normal pregnancy. What has been your experience so that, we could compare? Because some women have fibroids, like I had prior to the surgery, and it was the worst experience of my life. And then some have it and it's only when they get pregnant, or they just live a very normal life. What has your experience been like?
Thank you, Coris, and thank you again for the opportunity to be here. I really admire the community that you would have created, and as someone that is a youth leader, youth advocate, I really appreciate the solidarity that we can offer each other by coming and sharing our stories and our genuine lived experience. Now, Natoya touched on something when she spoke about this healthy lifestyle thing, and for those of you who could see my facial reaction when she spoke about giving up cheese, I was a bit heartbroken, and I did have to change my entire diet when I started my skincare routine. Big up my dermatologist, Dr. Derm, the best, most amazing. Please check her out. So I had to go on this strict regimen, and it really kind of hurt me. I have this friend, she's studying in Jamaica. She doesn't eat. She could line with Natoya. Like, she's on this strict no meat eating soya chunks thing. She told me she have a soya chunks pasta for me to try when I reach. I'm dreading it. I am. She's like, I know we're gonna start eating non-dairy cheese, and I'm like, what are we doing? Like, I really thought about that when I had to give up pasta. It was kind of hard for me because it's a comfort food. My family jokes that all I cook is Italian and Chinese cuisine when I'm home, and I don't cook Creole food. We don't even be cooking roti. I'm like, oh, come on. How long it does be to be in the kitchen making bus up from scratch? But I do it so that they would give me an ease up. But I really appreciate the fact that we could share that. And I saw Dr. Denoon, I think, share that we have to do it gradually. And it was something that really impacted me because, like, I have the idea. I'm a planner. So when I got my diagnosis, I had already planned my life, but I'm very mindful because I also read Stoicism and I read philosophy that we can't always have things in that way, and we can't control every outcome. what we can control is our response to it. So I was really trying to manage my response to everything that was happening. So I'm like, well, I'm not gonna let this be the end all and be all. This does not define me. It is something that is happening to me, but it does not define me. And I really appreciate it's very beautiful that each of you have supportive partners in your life. It's something I am also manifesting, being the only single person on this panel. You'll pray for me, please. It's really hard out there. The dating pool in hell. Fibroids in hell and the dating pool in hell, and it real rough. But we're gonna make it. We're really manifesting it. We're doing the inner work and the healing to ensure that we can attract and be better. But in terms of actually dealing with it, like I have planned. So I went through this whole thing and I was like, well, this is not gonna define me. And I continue to live the entire thing in my head in different ways. So I'm like, if this affects my fertility, should I know now so that I would know how to plan? So then I went through this whole thing when I looked at all the gynecologists that I want to go to and the type of treatments that I can do to test to see if it's gonna affect my fertility. And then I'm like, do I really want to know this now? And I spoke to my friend who has PCOS and I told her about it. Because even though it's not the exact same thing, like I could relate to her for support. So it's like, she's like, well, I don't want to figure it out now. I probably want to wait until I'm ready to have kids. And I was like, but what if we know now and we could do something about it? But then like earlier today when I was preparing, because like I have been sleeping this session, breathing, like I have just been thinking about what am I going to say in this session. I was kind of freaking out because this is the first time actually speaking about it in this kind of magnitude. So like I literally woke up this morning with this on my mind. So I was like, I feel like we should know because like we are kind of already made up our mind, like we can't have kids, we just adopt. And she already picked out baby name. And like I did that and I really actually wasn't sure if that was the best thing to do, because then I think I had like a little breakdown. I was like, suppose I really can't do this. But then I regrouped and I was like, okay, I can do all of these things, and if this doesn't work, then this is the fallback plan. Like I always have to have a backup plan. Like if I do not have a backup plan, I might have a breakdown, because even in that space, like not being able to do something about it really kills me.
Affected you, right?
So then I was like, you know what? This is happening. And as somebody that works with a lot of organizations, I'm like, there probably is an organization that is doing some work. And then I remember Chris because I would have interacted with her in another part of my life when I was in Heritage. So I remember that she would have shared her foundation at some point in time. And I was like, hey, let me check this out. Then I applied and then she reached out to me and well, we discussed it and she spoke about the opportunity for psychosocial support and stuff like that. So then I was like, okay, this is good. I could get into this. And then by probably talking about it more, I could actually, take persons through my journey being so young. It might really help a lot of other persons, one, to learn more about what is happening with their bodies, two, know about the different ways in which they could go about seeking not only physical care, but as well as mental health care. As somebody that studies psychology and wishes to advance into that profession in a greater in-depth, as well as just the general lifestyle challenges, because some days are very good days when you think about it, and then some days are very bad. So I cannot really remember not having a painful period. So it has always been a defining thing for me. So like thinking about it now, I was like, if I have to do the surgery now, that's a lot of mental energy that I could probably put elsewhere going into this new period of my life as a postgrad student. So I'm not going to do that. So we'll probably come back in one of those later sessions and I'll give you all updates as to how that is going to go. But I really appreciate the fact that we could get to touch base on all these different aspects of life, because it helps me now to have an idea. Well, although I've thought about 1,000 different ways that this could go, this is a new way that I have not seen. And this is a new way. And if I incorporate Natoya's non-dairy regime, because I really don't eat 3 cucumbers, I don't eat cucumbers at all, I'll probably put like 2 tomatoes on my plate and call it the day. I could actually try that vegan ice cream that Stephan mentioned, tasties and methanol. So, and these are the opportunities that when we reach out to communities, because like Dr. Alina, I was a bit ashamed of the fact that this was happening to me, because I have like a pretty flat stomach unless I'm bloated. And I'm like, but I do all of these things, and then the whole thing where sometimes as women, you shame women for not being able to do certain things just to get at them. I was kind of concerned about that, because I have this kind of very nice, picturesque life, and now I have this to deal with. So it's like, how do I manage that? Because I'm very transparent on my social media. If you follow me on IG, I post a lot sometimes. So it's like taking person through this. So when Grace messaged me, I was like, wow, this is like I'm coming out to the world, but this is actually something that is gonna help, because there are other people that may have similar symptoms that may not have thought about this being something that could happen to them, because I didn't think that at 22 I would have to navigate this and then include it in my 5-step dating checklist. So but the support is real. I actually don't talk about it like it's something like, when I told my friends I would go really have a conversation about it, I only recently had to have a conversation with one of my friends that checked in on me this morning, because we didn't really talk a lot for the last couple of weeks, because we've had hectic schedules that I was going to do the session today and I was kind of freaking out. And I do have a counselor because I'm studying psychology. We have to do a mandatory counseling session. I recommend getting a counselor even if you don't think anything is wrong with you. It's really good for getting your life on track. Please do it. So I was telling her that I was a bit afraid to speak because I didn't want to say the wrong things, even though it's my lived experience. But I also wanted to ensure that what I put out would be able to help and impact people. Like, I always have this kind of imposter syndrome when I have to do interviews in any space, and I've been doing this for years. I go through everything with a fine-tooth comb, but this is more than just the science. This is more than just the statistics. This is each person sharing, hoping that we could help somebody else by giving them that opportunity to be brave with their voice. So I really appreciate, Clarice, you having the strength to do this foundation and provide that space for us. I really look forward to more opportunities to share with women and work with them to help. Dr. Alina, as always, you are amazing. You are one of my role models in this life. Natoya, it is an honor to be in this space with you. I will be looking forward to seeing some of those recipes that everyone is talking about in the chat. And Stephan, you have really set the bar above and beyond standard for what it should be. And I know each of you and your partners have done that. I just saw a message from us. Right. So each of you and your partners would have created that safe space to be able to have those types of discussions. Like, I have done it in this really, really hellish dating world. It has not been bad. I kid you not. One person told me, nah, that small thing, like all you have to do is change your diet and that will go away. Like, when I'm ready for you, that will go away. And I was like, don't do that. Please don't do that. Like, don't do that. Please. And then the next person was like, well, actually, he was very forward thinking. Like, he was like, we need to discuss all of these things, even though we're not sure if this is going to go anywhere. We should facilitate this space for safe communication. So, like, in this new space, I have met some non-hellish men. I just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
All right.
It's hard. Thank you so much. It's been
Yes.
good.
Thank you so much, Cindy. You know, you brought forward so many things, and you actually took me back to when I was first diagnosed in 2006. I had just moved to Jamaica, so that's a plug there. Mona, whoop, whoop, the best. Sorry to all the St. Augustine and Bim persons on the live or the chat. Notwithstanding, I had just migrated young, and the diagnosis transformed my life. The truth is, I didn't start over processing as it relates to the possibility of children and all these things. However, you know, as life progressed, of course, those things came to mind. But you have definitely shown how being extremely young and having a diagnosis like this can, you know, affect you mentally and emotionally. You have also somewhat touched on that notion of the shame and the embarrassment coming forward as it relates to fibroids. And I'll expand it to other issues of the uterus again because of our space. It's taboo to talk about anything related to fertility or perceived infertility, even the shame associated with menstruation, you know. But that's a whole other conversation because we do quite a bit of advocacy on within the organization in different areas. Yes, we have fibroid awareness and we focus on fibroids, but other issues of the uterus as well. And of course, menstrual health, reproductive health, women's health. Period poverty is a term that a number of persons are kind of catching on to as well. You know, persons not being able to afford feminine products. But again, I don't want to digress and go too far off. But thank you for sharing, being so transparent and putting in a plug for us, along with your dermatologist and the other things that you shared. What came forward as well, lifestyle change, diet, and how it's linked to our overall health. Stephan spoke about the vegan ice cream. Stephan spoke about leaving dairy alone. And then, of course, we've been having an amazing time in the chat, right? Recipes for vegan this, recipes for vegan that. Of course, because Natoya is here, we put in the plug for Say Fresco Deli. You all can check them out on Facebook, because Natoya has really been championing in her own way the unprocessed lifestyle. And I saw her putting in there, she was talking about soya, because, you know, of course, we hear soya chunks and we think soya is a good, healthy alternative. But I know she wants to chime in there with that, and then we'll get into a few questions before we wrap up, because it's now 6:41. So Toy, quick, let's see if we can get in some questions and then wrap up.
Yes, thank you so much, Corey. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Stephan. Thank you, Alina. And the chat, listen, this is our live audience we have here, right? I love it. So this soya, let me talk about the soya a little bit, right? Because I know a lot of the times persons say, okay, I want to live a healthy life. I want to start eating this and I want to start doing that. But we think that we have to transition off of the meat into something else as protein. And guess what? We don't have to. And then ultimately, we quickly think that soya is the best way. But the process that really goes through, it's almost like you're eating styrofoam. Really and truly. And do you want to be eating styrofoam and rice and peas and stuff? No, you don't, right? So let's think about eating things that are really alive. So one of the things I noted is that I wanted to encourage you all to go through the process gradually, right? Cindy spoke about it and someone in the chat said that, and that's one of the notes I had to leave you guys with. Don't think that, okay, I'm going to eat salad every day and that's going to make everything better. It's not, because then again, some of the mixes in the salad might not be what you need at the time. So what you can do is introduce 2 servings of fruits in your diet daily and vegetables daily, right? So let's say you're going to have, I'm not going to tell you not to have your pilau, but don't have a whole plate of pilau and we're going back to the 3 cucumbers. We have to have a small amount of pilau and a large amount of salad. You have to balance your plate. All right, so have your fruits and your vegetables, have your green juices. I mean, you don't have to mix everything. So if you want to have cucumber juice, have cucumber juice. You don't have to mix cucumber with an apple because you want it sweet. You have to start getting away from the culture that if it's not sweet, it's not good, it's not tasty. All right, so really, these are the small things I wanted to say, but the soya for sure, it's not something that I recommend. And I also want to encourage you to read your labels. Read your labels when you're in the grocery store to see what's inside. Because here's the amazing thing, right? Corn syrup is like on the list of things that kills us so fast. And corn syrup is in almost everything. Right? So just pay attention, spend a little bit more time in the grocery store. For me, my grocery store list is this big, right? My vegetable list is this big. We have like weekly, we buy fresh fruits and vegetables, right? So you don't have to line up by some of these grocery places and come up with all of these things. You know, try to eliminate that and try to eat more fresh. That is really gonna help you have a healthier lifestyle. You're gonna be less grumpy. You're gonna be more sexy and fabulous, and that's the life we want to live, you know. Just yes, Cindy started dance with me there. That's the life we want to live. We want to live a healthier life and just be in a better mood every day. And there's so much more I could add, Coco, but go to the
Yes.
questions and let's see what happens.
Yes. Thank you very much, Toy. And of course, as we really ramp up social media engagement and public engagement for the rest of the year, because we have been quiet for 2021, the greater part of the year. This is actually your first session for the year online. And, last month, July was Fibroid Awareness Month, and we've had quite a number of things happening in this space internationally. And I said, as I'm getting back into the throes of engagement, we are going to say farewell to Fibroid Awareness Month with this lived experience conversation. Of course, we are planning to talk about fibroids and food. So I'm putting it out there that Toya will be back again. And we'll also have more nutritionists and just different topics related to fibroid awareness, overall health, reproductive health. So you all can look out. And of course, check out our social media platforms and our website for information, and you could always contact us directly. But really and truly, to support what Natoya shared, lifestyle change is the biggest part of it. It has to be gradual. You talked about sweet, if it's not sweet, it's not right. And I was actually having a conversation very recently, and it's a conversation I often have. Bitter food also has its place. Right, bitter foods also has their place in the diet, even as it relates to curbing appetite, right? But that's another conversation. What I want to do is just encourage persons. Information is important, lifestyle change is important, but I'm not going to give the closing statement now. Let me open the gate for any questions that we may have. And and then we'll take it from there. So any questions, you can share in the chat. I'm asking for all of us who are speakers this evening to look, because I'm also checking the Facebook Live for how many questions that may come in. And Alina, before we get into the questions, I know someone was sharing on the Facebook Live. You in hindsight, you may be happy about the cut you've got, because she got a similar cut, and which is the classic. And she said many persons who got the bikini cut, they complain about the tummy never going flat again, right? But she had this classic cut, and once she was able to start exercising again, it healed flat, and she has a flat tummy. So that may be a plus. Sometimes things happen.
Keeping my fingers crossed for that, because I still look pregnant.
All right, so we're going to get there. So any questions we have? Another very important point that came forward, and of course, this is something we'll touch when we are zoning in on fibroids and food and, the lifestyle change, is, of course, you do whatever you're doing, of course, you consult those who are experts in the field, whether it's a licensed nutritionist, your licensed doctor or practitioner, so that you can eat properly and eat well, right? We always say here also, I am not a doctor. So I often do a disclaimer. I didn't do it, but let me do it now. So you get information here. You still have to revert to your preferred specialist, right? We're talking from experience. We're talking from information, yes, or support doctors maybe in the chat. They may share information. However, you still need to revert to your specialist when you receive the information and you proceed to make the necessary choices, right? So it's the gospel is not here, but of course, we're still sharing amazing information. So questions. Any questions at all? Hi, Marcel.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, thank you for joining us.
Well, I must thank Alina for putting it up on her page, and that's where I shared some information with her, because I got diagnosed in 2006, and basically my then gynecologist wanted to scare the bejesus out of me. And I basically just blew him off. He wanted how many thousands for surgery, and I ignored. But in 2008, after I changed my doctor and was diagnosed, I was told I was supposed to look as though I was like probably 10 months pregnant.
Wow.
I had an 18 centimeter fibroid, and it was sitting on my bladder. I'll be honest, I prayed a lot. I do not know when it was moved, but my process of squeezing my stomach to urinate, that changed. And I remember asking the doctor, what do I have to do? You know, tell me what I need to cut out to my diet. And there were certain things I just got rid of them, and I generally was a healthy and have been a healthy eater. So the processed foods, basically, I cut out a lot. I do a lot of vegetables. I must admit, I love my cheese. I love pasta. I love making my my pizzas and so forth. But I will also stress that because I have a sister who is a dietitian, you know, and she would inject certain things, and that, you know, you're conscious about it. But back when I was told I had this size of a fibroid, I remember the radiologist looking at me when she was doing the ultrasound. And I said, what happened? And she said, oh, nothing. I said, yes, something in your face. And she said, for the size of this, you have no stomach. I had a flat stomach. I had a flat stomach. And when I returned to Trinidad, that's the end of August, you know, it was different, certain things, but I guess also, and I shared this with Alina, I guess menopause also helped in terms, but of shrinking, because the following year, it had lost 4 centimeters. But I must admit, when it came to the period, the pain and discomfort, and I remember between 2010 and 2012, I would disappear from the classroom to the bathroom with my periods, because if I, just to make sure I don't have an accident. But I must admit, this was very good. It's a lot of information. I wish, you know, something like this could really evolve in St. Vincent, because as I shared on the chat, I recently learned of a friend. I mean, cutting a fibroid weighing 20 pounds, you know, and when I heard, I was like 20 pounds, you know, but this is real for us as women. And as everyone has said, you know, sometimes we may say share it with the males, but I'm not sure sometimes you have that male that you want to share it with, or really males in particular. But as women, sometimes women are the ones who tend to be the one really knocking, you know. I've seen younger women really go through some stress with it. I mean, I've had my battles. It's not been as horrible, and I'll be honest, my heart broke when I really heard Alina talk this afternoon. Guys, keep up the good work. It's necessary. Todd, I'm glad for you guys who are very supportive and behind this. Tobagonians, you guys are really awesome. Keep it up. The young lady, don't despair. And I want to tell her, don't channel your energies focusing too much on it, because it will take away from your whole livelihood. Live. And I will tell you, Alina spoke about getting on her knees. Yes, prayer does work. Keep that prayer life. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Marcel. It's an absolute pleasure to know that we are connecting with someone in the region. Dr. Williams just shared, unfortunately, that electricity went by her, so we did not get closing remarks from her. But she may try to get back in.
But I'm in the dark, so don't mind that.
All right, love, no problem. Jeanette, I'm going to come to you shortly because I'm seeing a hand raised there. I'll come to you shortly. You could prepare a question, but I just wanted to just kind of reinforce some of the points that came forward from Marcel as it relates to the importance of support, and the point that she raised regarding the fibroid size going down and menopause. So the doctors on our chat and those who are in our support circle will tell you menopause, because of course you have decreased oxygen in the body. Sorry, decreased estrogen, not oxygen. You know, the fibroids can shrink, right? But if you're young or much younger, you will not be waiting for for menopause, you know, if need be, right? So the important thing is to know what your circumstances are, know what your diagnosis is, talk with your provider about your options. Someone did ask earlier about what options are there outside of surgery. And I believe that would be open surgery. There are some non-invasive or less invasive methods like laparoscopic myomectomies, which would require less invasion for the removal of the fibroids. But ultimately, you know, I don't want to give a medical answer because there's no one medical answer in a nutshell. The size of your fibroid, the location of your fibroid, other symptoms that you may be having will all determine, and even what you want to do in future. If you want to preserve fertility, if you don't want to have children, all those things will determine, my apologies, all those things will determine your treatment options. But one thing that we can all do is start making the lifestyle changes incrementally and then moving forward. Dr. Armstrong is also answering some of the very medical questions in the chat. I want to thank her because her time zone is way different from ours, but she's always there to support us. Jeanette, you can go ahead with your question now, and then Dr. Dinoon Todd, I see you. You can follow up to Jeanette.
Good afternoon. I really
Hi.
appreciate this program today because
Yes.
I am going through an ordeal
Mm-hmm.
with this fibroid. I am also bleeding. This will be a month and some weeks now. I know you said you all are not the medical profession to give advice, but I'm still asking, even though I am on the medication, very often I will have to visit the hospital. I will have to be on morphine and all of those medications because of the pain. Even in my sleep, I cannot lie because if I lie, I actually feel like a bulge on the bed, protruding out of my uterus below, and a lot of lower back pain. So I'm just asking if there's anything that is available, you know, that could assist me, because I already decided to do the surgery, but because of COVID, but I just want to ease, because every day, there's not a day that I goes without pain. There's certain activities I cannot do. I cannot do no long standing, you know, so it's a bit uncomfortable. It's a bit uncomfortable for my spouse because, you know, that special part of their, you know, intimacy at times, I cannot, but he is there with me, you know, supporting, but I know that it can also affect him. So, you know, I just want, you know, I am glad to hear the support this evening, and some of the changes I know I have to do is the eating. For some reason, I do not eat in the day, but you see, in the night, I eat a lot in the night, and I'm trying to ease, but it will take time, as I heard this afternoon. But if there's any way that you all could assist in, I will greatly appreciate.
Thank you so much, Jeanette, for sharing. So because the question is so private and personal, I do not want to, and of course, so I'm medical focused as well. I do not want to give a response here. What you can do is share your number. Are you on, you are on this Zoom chat. Are you able to send your number directly to me? Via the chat there, so that I could have it saved, or if you feel comfortable sharing it in the open chat. If you're not able to navigate it that way, take our number. It's 362.
Just 1 minute.
Okay, no problem. Dr. Dinoon will come to you in like about 10 seconds when she's able to write down the number, and then we'll take it from there.
Go right ahead.
Right, so the number to take is 362-1807. That is 362-1807. And you can send me a WhatsApp message, identify yourself, and then we'll have a conversation in the coming week. Yeah?
Thank you.
You are welcome, and thank you so much for sharing. Dr. Dinoon.
Hi, everyone. Well,
Hi.
Chris, you could also probably send the number in the chat as well. So
Yes.
it's easier to access. So this question is really for Stephan as a partner and a support. So it's two questions. One, what was your experience being a partner going through the process of diagnosis and supporting your wife in terms of the reaction from like clinicians to persons in the office, as well as in general? What was like the feedback you got from friends, if you would have spoken to this with friends or perhaps even older men? Because I feel like sometimes with respect to reproductive issues, men can have a very hands-off approach, especially when it comes to female reproduction. And the second question is, how were you able to cope with being a support? Because a lot of times it's very easy for supporters to neglect themselves, and supporting can be a energy consuming experience. And it's very easy for you to put all of that into supporting your partner. But a lot of times you also need support. So what were some of the things that you did to cope and to sort of maintain a balance of your own being able to process the information that you have, the diagnosis as well? And what are some of the things that you would recommend to other partners supporting persons with fibroids?
All right. Yes. Hi, Todd.
Hey.
Good friend, Todd. Yes. So basically, first of all, you'd have that upon getting the diagnosis, you'd have that initial fear. You'd have that fear of, okay, what does this mean? Does this mean that can't have sex? Does this mean we won't be able to have children? You know, so there's that initial fear that, especially as men or anybody who never heard about fibroids, would be having. So the first thing I did was, okay, I need to find out for myself, not just from online and that kind of thing, because that feeds fear, because you have various things online. And if you don't get from the correct sources, you would have that continued fear. So the first thing I asked her is, okay, when is your next appointment? When is it that I could attend? And she said, obviously. And she was happy to see that I was interested. But added to that, as I indicated before, I started to go to the sessions that Corey's would have hosted with Fibroid Awareness before TT. And it gave me more insights. And then the follow-up sessions with the doctor, which indicated that, okay, when she did the radiology, the ultrasound, that it wasn't as big and it wasn't threatening anything with regards to having sex or even ability to have children. However, for those who may have partners, and you have a diagnosis that the fibroids might be could threaten having children, possibly, still don't have that. Don't let that fear overwhelm you. And I'm speaking more to the men especially. You now have to find out, okay, how best can I support? And so you asked about, okay, you were asking how to handle the stress. The stress.
Yeah, like how, like you supporting her, how do you cope with that?
Yes.
Yeah, how do you cope with that?
So you have to be intentional. So after you get the information, you say, okay, what needs to be done? Not what you feel should be done, what needs to be done. And then you structure it. You sit with your partner and you plan. You both of you will have to be, as I said before, you don't have fibroids, your partner don't have fibroids, we have fibroids here. So we now have to sit and plan, how are we going to help this situation? Before used to be running with Alina, you remember those days?
Yeah.
Running with Alina. But then I also had to have the days where I exercise with Gavi, because Gavi at the time couldn't keep up with Alina and I, you know, as in
You know how the
fitness
days go.
run. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So you'd have the days, and then also the kind of exercises that she would like. I personally might not prefer, but I still would say, okay, this day is for Gabby, or this period is for Gabby. And then also, you know, things like looking at nutrition. I then said, okay, what could I cut out to be able to help her improve on her eating and that kind of thing? And to be honest, if you think of it as a guy, I feel if you think of it as, listen, I am also diagnosed with this thing, you'll feel a greater sense of, you'll be more obligated to make any change. And it wouldn't feel like, oh gosh, I'm going through this thing. You know, you feel more sensitized to supporting and giving that support relentlessly. So that is what worked for me. Again, my disclaimer, I can't speak for every guy, but I think definitely if you first try to remove that fear by putting the correct information in, getting the information, discuss that information with your partner. And if you and your partner feel confused, discuss that with your partner and the gynecologist for best advice on how to approach it. Alina is here, clinical psychologist. You know, I mean, no, it's any relationship, whether you have fibroids or not. Trust me, a little consultancy and counseling would help the situation. Lay everything on the table. Don't. If you feel overwhelmed, don't keep it in the background. You understand? As a guy, you know, we don't like to talk, you know. We keep it, oh gosh, you know, and no. Put it on the table here now, feeling overwhelmed today, right? I know you're going through this, but I'm feeling overwhelmed. How about tomorrow we do this instead, right? But don't give up. If you give up, she gives up. You understand? So that's just my take, and that's how I would have handled it. Even though, as I said, the situation might not have been threatening severely or anything like that, at the end of the day, you have to have that mindset of it could be that situation. You know, so it's just to give you support until something good happens.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you very much for the question, Todd. And thank you very much for your feedback, as always, Stephan. All right, guys. So it's 7:07 p.m. We have been on for some time, but of course, the interest has not waned. It's still there. I want to thank everyone for their time this evening. I'm going to ask my guests. Sorry, Natalie had a hand up that I missed. My sincerest apologies, my dear. Question in, and then we'll get to the closing remarks from our guests. And you'll see us for the next session. Natalie?
Yes, thank you very much for accommodating my question.
No problem.
I have two.
No problem.
Embolization procedure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to know what happens to the beads that they insert. That's one. Two, a friend of mine was advised to take mefenamic acid. It's supposed to reduce the blood loss, but because it's acid, I was concerned, so I'm asking about it.
Repeat the second one.
Mefenamic acid.
The entire question, sorry.
Oh, okay. All right, so it's two parts.
Mm-hmm.
The embolization.
Embolization, right, I got that part. The second part.
The second question?
Yes. With the acid.
Right. Mefenamic acid.
Mm-hmm. What's your question concerning that?
It's acid. Is it as if I take it and is it effective? Thank you.
Okay, so I cannot give a response to the acid question. I am not sure if Dr. Armstrong, one of our support doctors, if she's able to give any feedback on that, as well as embolization, the beads. I believe the beads gradually disappear Dr. Armstrong can also confirm if she's familiar with that procedure, because there are persons who specialize in different procedures. What I can tell you about UFE, or uterine fibroid embolization, is that it's a procedure that essentially starves the fibroid of its blood supply. However, from all the sessions that we have done, from all the sessions that we have done and all the specialists that have come in, from Dr. Cindy Duke, who is a fertility specialist from Tobago based in Las Vegas, Dr. Armstrong, and other persons, it is not the best option for fertility preservation, right? And also, so if you want to have children, they don't advise it as the best option, because you're putting something to stop the blood supply to the fibroids, but the fibroids are attached to your uterus. So it also affects the blood supply to the uterus. Additionally, the experience that Dr. Armstrong, Dr. Williams shared in terms of degeneration, and fibroids do not get blood, they degenerate, and that is extremely painful. So it also depends, and it also depends on the size of the fibroids and the location of the fibroids as well. And that's why we always say, a lot of information is out there, but it really depends on your individual situation. And of course, you have to have the conversations with your preferred specialist. If you don't feel comfortable, it's your body. You get a second, third, or fourth opinion. But I know without a doubt, particularly where fertility is concerned, myomectomy is actually the best option. And that's the one everybody else run from, you know? But I stand as a living testimony. I was diagnosed extremely young, as mentioned. I was actually told I have a uterus that is distended to that of a 6-month pregnancy. I was 19 at the time. And for those who would know me on the live or within the space, I also never had a high stomach. So it was pretty confusing to look at and to hear 6 months pregnant, but your stomach is flat. I eventually had the myomectomy in 2014, almost 10 years after the diagnosis. Over 50 fibroids were removed. The largest fibroid that was removed from me looked like a baby. We've actually shared this in past sessions, was huge. And I still have my womb functioning quite normally. You know, so options are there. The thought of a major surgery can really be daunting for some, but you have to have the conversations. Everything has to be put on the table before you. And ultimately, that's why Fibroid Awareness TT exists, right? Because you may be running from open surgery when you have concerns about fertility, you want to have kids. And then the choice you eventually make may not be the best choice for that, you know? But the positive part of this entire thing that we're sharing is that fibroids, or diagnosis of fibroids, is not the end. Do not self-diagnose. Don't let anybody say, okay, because you have fibroids, you can't do this, or it's because of that. And then even the terms that we use, fibroids, you know, all sorts of misinformation is in this space. Get the information. We are here. We are a phone call away, a message away. The website is up and active. Reach out and you will be supported. We actually have quite a few women who we've even supported through the myomectomy experience, right? That's a service we offer. You have to get the surgery done. We are here to pray with you. If you believe in prayer, I do, and it has helped me a far way. And we also are there to, you know, give you information pre and post the surgery experience. So you have to get the information and get to your preferred specialist. Do not self-diagnose, and do not let anyone tell you because you have fibroids, you can't have children, or the fibroids are cancerous, because fibroids are not cancerous. Get the right information, Stephan mentioned it as well, from the right source. Yeah, but you could always message us and we could get more information to you, because some information was coming through the chat as it relates to the acid you were asking about, and it being in the category of NSAIDs and stuff. My bestie, who's a doctor, will probably be giving me information after that I could also share with you. So, yeah, Camilla, you could go right ahead as we wrap up. Thank you.
No, hi everyone. Clarice, thank you again for such a wonderful, wonderful presentation. Thanks to all the speakers, all the contributors. It was really excellent. Giselle, there's a Giselle George that was in the chat that raised a question about psychological assistance. If you have if you have a psychologist or access to a psychologist that could provide the support that these women need once they have been diagnosed, or if they know someone who has been diagnosed, someone that they could direct them to so that they could get that psychological support for the women who probably don't have you know, partners that they could depend on, or friends that they could talk to that would understand, because sometimes we have friends that listen, but we don't have friends that, okay, we could say, well, you know, let's do the research, let's change our diet, let's, you know. So that was a question that I felt like I needed asked in the open forum as opposed to in the chat, because it makes a lot of sense to have that access.
Thank you very much, because I actually missed that question. Thank you so much, Camilla. And yes, and yes, and yes, and yes. So I'm actually proud to say one of the very first persons that we supported as a foundation is a mental health professional. And she eventually had major surgery to remove fibroids and then had twins the following year after the surgery, right? She's she's Akila Riley, probably prophesying there now. And she is one of those professionals in our support circle whom I am confident will be able to give that kind of direction and support. Dr. Williams, who has recently been more open in terms of her experience. She's also a mental health professional, and I hope I'm not overstepping my boundaries, but she has committed to supporting the organization as well. So once time permits for the new mommy, she will also be able to provide support and guidance in that regard. But we've done sessions in the past as it relates to mental health. They are available online with coping mechanisms. We've actually had afternoon sessions for the women alone, again with coping mechanisms, things to do. So that resource is available within the Fibroid TT circle. I will be sharing our contact information shortly. And as I said, we're always a phone call or a message away, and we are here for women, girls, and wider society. Because Stephan is here sharing, but we also have husbands and boyfriends who contact us directly for information and support. So, you know, the good men, they are out there. They are not few and far between. They have been contacting us. And even for the men-only sessions that we've had, they were very present, asking questions. Some not as open, you know, they're messaging me directly for me to put the question to the professional, but they are there. So mental health support, Camilla and Giselle, yes, yes, yes. So it's time to wrap up now. Closing remarks. Toya, I'm gonna start with you, Cindy to you, then Alina, and then Stephan. If Alina is still here, because I know, yeah.
Well, Clarice and everyone, thank you so much for being present and actively present, I must say. I would close off by asking this question. What are you gonna fuel your body with, really? We have to remember that we're alive and we want to be alive for a long time, you know? We want to live healthy lives, to play with our children, our grandchildren, and our children's children. We want to be able to do different activities. We want to be able to function and work, as Stephan would have said, you know, What am I working for? Not to take care of my family? So ask yourself these questions. What are you fueling yourself with? And the other question I like to ask, is your body, listen, this question kind of hot, but is your body a garden or a graveyard, right? Is your body a garden or a graveyard? Because I mean, you wouldn't want to put coconut oil in your car, right? So think about these things. And in leaving, because I know some of the persons I would have gotten messages as well. I want to just repeat to pay attention to how your body reacts to certain things, right? So start making a food journal, you know, daily. As you start to make the changes, of course, yes, you can visit your doctor, etc. At Surf Fresco Deli, we have a registered dietitian that works along with us. So a lot of the things that we prepare, if not everything, does pass through that process. And if it is you want to have a one-on-one consult with her because you have specific things that you may need, that is also available, right? But for now, what you can do is pay attention to the food that you eat, start journaling and write down how these things make you feel. Secondly, just take some time out for yourself. It's okay. You don't have to do it on the weekends. You can do it every day, right? In the morning, at lunchtime, in the evening. You know, I know because of COVID, some of us, we have like a flexible schedule now where, you know, probably might be working on Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays. Take some time out for yourself on Tuesday, like sit down and chill with yourself, you know, look at your body, look at your armpits. I mean, it sounds pretty random, but it's so important to spend time with yourself because then you would start to realize the experiences that you're having. You know, you would see different things on your body. And in spending time with yourself, you know, take that time out to cook for yourself. That we call that communion. Cooking something for yourself is a form of communion. Feeding yourself something that's alive is communion. So have communion with yourself and your family and just allow that experience to transcend the experience that, you know, this fast-paced life, okay, I have to get this, I have to get that, this is gonna get done. Okay, you know, because sometimes we actually put that pressure on ourselves because of the expectations we have of ourselves. So don't have that, you know, that expectation of yourself, but really show up, but you have to show up full. So spending time with yourself would allow you to show up full for yourself, for your husband, for your wife, you know, whoever it is or whatever, for your children, for your family, and to show up full for work, you know. So some of us might not be so grumpy at our workplaces anymore because now we're actually just taking a time out to breathe, to drink a glass of water, to have some cucumbers, more than 3 slices, to have a proper salad, you know, something. Just take care of yourself. And of course, if you want to have a conversation with me, or Surf Fresco Deli is the place to be. Seeing that we're plugging things here, I'm just gonna put that in there nicely. And it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. And one of the things I wanted to add, Corey, because it was mentioned earlier that it's an expensive life. It's not an expensive life. You know why? Breadfruit, green fig, sweet potatoes, cassava, they have become my pasta, my bread, my flour, my everything, my porridge, everything. And these things are like $10, $15, $20. So if it is you use that now as your bread, your pastas, your flour, your rice, that's simple. It's like I'm just paying $15 for some rice and that's gonna boil and split up for my entire family. Have that nicely with some lentils. You can have your fish, have your vegetables, and please don't overcook your vegetables. If you can't have them raw, don't have them all soggy because it comes like you're still having something that's not alive, right? So I know there are persons who have complications in having raw stuff. Just give the veggies a nice quick stir, you know? And the last thing I would like to add is use fresh seasoning. Yes, we have shadow Betty. We have all kinds of things growing in our backyard. Let's just use them, guys. You know, everything doesn't have to come from a bottle to make it so fast. Take a time out. In the time out that you're taking for yourself, go and just get some flavor pepper, shadow benny, celery, and just make a little blend so you could use that in everything. These little things would just help us actually take better care of ourselves faster. So you're probably saying you don't have the time to do it. In taking the time out for yourself, you're going to make the time out for yourself. All right, if that makes sense to you, I hope you understand. Thank you so much, Corey. Thank you, everyone. Listen, bless up yourselves. We're alive and we're happy. So let's live in love and light. All right?
All right. So thank you, Toy. For technical reasons, I really wanted Steph to wrap up here. But just to make sure that he's still here with us, I'm going to ask Stephan to give his closing remarks now.
All right, yeah, because my battery giving a good problem here. I'll leave it a little acronym. Fibroids. F, fear not. Fellas, I'm speaking to the fellas especially. Fear not. Just understand the situation with your partner. Get the information, like the I. Get the information, right? Understand what is the situation with your partner first. Don't fear. Find out what is the situation, and then go with your partner to get the information that you need. Be there. Be with your partner, right? Continue to be there when she's in pain, when she's going to the gynecologist. R, be realistic, right? Understand what the information is. Ask what are the pros, the cons, what are the options you have, and be real with the information. Don't try to shy away or hide anything. Be real with it, right? O, observe your partner. Women don't like to tell men what to do every time. Ladies, at Ally, you don't like to tell your partner what to do every minute, right? So sometimes we just need to observe our partner and see and ask, prod a little, how are you feeling today? Any pains today? How is the cycle going? These kind of questions, I, be intentional. Todd asked about it, the stress. Be intentional about the support you are giving your partner, right? Plan the schedule, sync a calendar, your Google Calendar with the doctor appointments, right? D, don't give up, right? It might feel overwhelming sometimes, but just don't give up. And S, last in fibroids, show the solidarity, right? Yes, you can eat vegan ice cream. And as Toya said, putting in the plugs is not for me, but it's for all you. TZ treats in Mason Hall. Trust me, you can't go wrong. That vegan ice cream, no preservatives, no artificial flavors.
Yeah,
and
so
that's
like a day.
And that's it. No, but it was really a privilege, Corys. And I will continue to give you and Fibroid Awareness TT and Women in Tobago my support. And I will encourage as much other fellas and of friends of mine especially to support the movement and the awareness of women health in Tobago and in the region. So you always have my support.
Thank you so much, Stephan. It's an absolute pleasure to have had you. I have a quick question because I know when you were getting ready to come to our session, you wanted to do like a little poll in your workplace, to ask men or in general. Were you able to do it? If not, we could always save it for another time, but were you able to ask, how many men ever heard the term before? What was the response like?
So I didn't get to do an extensive poll, but for two of the guys I asked, they said they heard their girlfriend. One was girlfriend and one was actually married. They heard their significant other speak about it. I said, so you didn't go with her to the doctor, the gynecologist? No, that is a woman thing by gynecologist. I saw that woman. So, oh, okay. But apparently their situation, their partner's situation wasn't, it didn't seem severe to the point that, it would have warranted their concern. But they said they heard, and that piqued my interest. But I could still do the survey. So see.
That's all right. We'd appreciate it. Yes, we will.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And you also need to send that acronym for us. Yes, that will make some amazing posts Let's Talk content for social media and in general. I love it. I'm going to design some really nice artwork for that and put it out there. So thank you very much, Stephan. Have an amazing evening. Kiss up Saf for me and tell Gabby good evening for me too. Yeah?
All right, take care.
All right, take care, you too. All right, Cindy, your closing remarks and then Alina.
Thank you so much. And this has been a really great session. I'm actually splitting myself in two because I have another program that I have to manage. So if you see me in the back here talking, it's because my executive director was calling on me to remind me that I am chairing one of my foundation's games night. So thank you again, Carice, for the opportunity. It has been an esteemed pleasure to sit alongside virtually so many amazing women and to be in this space where we feel comfortable and we can encourage each other to share our lived experiences, to have that framework of support. I like to take this time to encourage persons to take a specific interest in your health. Sometimes we take things for granted when we, as Natoya would have said, pay attention to your body. Because now I feel like if I'm more in tune with my body, like I could feel if something is going wrong. And then I'll be like, oh, well, that's what's happening. Like I really reached Natoya's level where she could tell what exactly it is gonna go wrong. But I'm getting there. And I really do appreciate the fact that we have been able to learn from each other. I continue to learn so much from Marcel sharing his story, to all the comments in the chat. I really have to check out that vegan cheese recipe. Like it's there, like the curiosity is there, but at the same time, I will stick to the dairy for a little longer, just a little longer. But I really appreciate the fact that we have this space and this community where we are able to share and learn from each other. So please take these steps to be a bit more intentional with your health. I know that there are a lot of taboo and stigmas associated with women's health, especially when it comes to fertility. But we have to remember that we are not defined by this experience. This is something that is part of our journey and is something that we could take control of and really change the course of how we experience it. So thank you again. It has been an amazing time. I really look forward to being here and really giving back in a sense with Fibroid TT awareness. So Chris, you can call on me anytime. I would make myself available and I will be reaching out to Natoya. I'm going to check out that deli. So you'll make sure you check out Natoya's deli. Make sure you follow Alina on social media. She gives, Dr. Williams gives amazing tips and tricks for managing your healthcare. She is amazing. And you know what? Make sure you follow Fibroid TT awareness too, the TT Confidence Project. I'm correct, Chris?
Yes.
Make sure you do check us out. I could say us, unofficial member, and we will be back with more of these amazing sessions. So have a great night, everyone, and be safe.
Thank you so much, Cindy and Alina. Dr. Williams, you still there with us?
Yes, so I'm here.
Wonderful. Okay, great.
So I would just like to say, when I shared the flyer on my Facebook, so many women reached out to me. One, I think because people were just shocked that I had fibroids and that I had the size of fibroids that I did, because, pre-pregnancy, I was all about my 4 to 6 pack abs.
That's it.
So I was in bikinis and all of that, looking fit, looking hot, and planning for Hot Girl Summer 2021. But so many women reached out to me sharing their experiences with fibroids and how much they either suffered in silence or they suffered from lack of information or just being uncertain. But I think what resonated for a lot of women in wanting to hear my story is that it gave them hope, because there are many women with fibroids that are hoping to become pregnant or that are wondering about being pregnant with fibroids. And so there's this quote by Morgan Nichols that says, "Tell the story of the mountain that you climbed so that your words become a page in someone's survival guide." And I am hoping that by continuing to share my experiences and continuing to work with Fibroid Awareness, your foundation, that I am able to help someone, even if it's one person, get through their experience with fibroids, whether that is with pregnancy or without pregnancy. And for those that have told me that, I've done myomectomy before, I've done the surgery and I'm trying to get pregnant and I'm still not getting pregnant. You know, I thought that I did what I had to do and it's still not happening. I just want to leave Proverbs 19:21. You know, it says that many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that would prevail. Initially, I was so angry that I was diagnosed with fibroids, but I believe that part of why I'm here is to work with other women, because now I have the professional experience of being a mental health professional, and I have a lived experience of going through not just the experience of fibroids, but a very traumatic pregnancy, a very traumatic delivery, and a very traumatic postpartum recovery. And so I think that my purpose here is to help other women and men get through that experience, but also to encourage women not to give up. If it is your dream to become pregnant, then liaise with your gynecologist, liaise with your medical professional, do the things that you have to do. And at the end of the day, it is the Lord's purpose that would prevail. And I just want to leave a message of hope to everyone.
Thank you very much, Alina. Beautiful way to truly bring this very fruitful discussion to a close. I also have to ask you to share your quote that you have pulled with us, yes, and also reiterate our mandate, which is to share our stories in a powerful way so that not only ourselves are healed, but we also help to heal others on their journey. Quickly, it just came up in the chat there. I am also a living testimony. I have PCOS and fibroids and 4 children. Camilla just shared in the chat, you know, so I'm happy so many lived experiences came forward. Again, even as Stephan shared with his wife, fibroids and a normal pregnancy, right? PCOS and a normal pregnancy. So we're gonna push it again. Do not self-diagnose. Do not take a diagnosis as the end. Know that Fibroid Awareness Trinidad and Tobago, we are here to support, encourage, provide information, you name it. We are here, we are available, and we are ready, essentially. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. And I just want to ask that you continue to support Fibroid Awareness Trinidad and Tobago. You can find us on the World Wide Web. We are online, ttconfidenceproject.org. That's our website. And the TT Confidence Project is actually our social outreach initiative, which takes us into schools primarily. So, you know, that has been halted until we are able to get back into virtual spaces and communities. So we are available to give talks like these in community organizations, academic organizations. We are available. We are also on Instagram at Fibroid TT. You can find us on Twitter. I forgot to put that handle there. And then, of course, we are on LinkedIn and Facebook. Fibroid Awareness Trinidad and Tobago. Find us, follow us, support in any way that you can. Thank you sincerely for joining us today. You can reach us directly on any of these platforms with your messages, your questions, your concerns, your comments. And look out for future sessions as 2021 rolls on. This is our farewell to Fibroid Awareness Month, which ended yesterday officially. July is Fibroid Awareness Month internationally, and our journey continues. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Have an amazing evening, have an amazing week. And as I said, you just look out for the information, you know, as we plan for outreach for the rest of 2021. Thank you and have an amazing evening. Oh, Todd also said it there. Share the page far and wide. Share. Thank you, everybody, and have a good evening.